Chapter 3, The Eternal Ones, by Kirsten Miller. The Snively house sat on a wide grassy shelf carved out of the mountainside, 2 stories tall with a fanciful turret that may have held a princess or two. It was the landmark every child searched for when driven into town. In the mornings, the house's white walls glowed in the sunlight, and the crimson azalea bushes that circled the first floor seemed to burn like a bed of live embers. By late afternoon, the shadow of the mountains crept over the valley. The magic of the Snively house turned dark. Even in the gloaming, with lights blazing from its windows, it couldn't have appeared less inviting. Shortly after 10 a.m., Haven lugged an Adirondack chair to the edge of the lawn. She adjusted her large round glasses and loosened the sash of her kimono. The silk billowed in the late morning breeze, almost exposing Haven's naked backside. Sometimes on Sundays she preferred to go without clothes. As far as she was concerned, that was just as the Lord had intended it. At the base of the hill, far below her grandmother's grand house, lay all of Snope City. 200 years after Haven's ancestors had founded it, the city remained little more than a short stretch of shops that sold nothing worth buying, but delusions of grandeur still ran in the family. For Imogene Snively, who refused to travel past the Tennessee line, Snope City was nothing less than the center of the universe. That and casual nudity were 2 of the many subjects on which she and her grandmother would never see eye to eye. That and casual nudity were 2 of the many subjects which she and her granddaughter would never see eye to eye. We're talking from Imogene's point of view. With the church bells pealing in the valley, Haven plopped down in the chair and flipped open a large sketchbook. She gnawed on the tip of her pencil, trying to focus on the image propped against her knees, a headless, busty body in an emerald green dress. Prom season was the busiest time for the little business she'd started with Beau. There wasn't a single decent dress to be scavenged for 100 miles in any direction, and that meant for 3 months every year, Haven and Beau were the most sought-after duo at Blue Mountain High School. The rest of the time, the other students kept their distance. They were rarely unpleasant, but always wary. Haven studied the sketch she'd drawn the day before. The green flapper dress felt familiar. The dresses she'd designed always did. She wrestled with a sense of déjà vu, trying to recall where she might have seen the gown before. But when she closed her eyes and tried to concentrate, all she could see was the boy on TV. She couldn't understand how, but she was certain she knew him. When he had looked into the camera, it felt like he had been looking for her. Yet somehow she'd managed to find him first. Haven's stomach fluttered, and she slid a hand under her robe to steady it. She still had no idea how much trouble her collapse had caused. Afterward, she'd been too exhausted for excuses. Beau had carried her to bed, where she'd woken 16 hours later, embarrassed that she'd lost control and frightened by the look she remembered seeing in her grandmother's eyes. When she'd found the house empty, its other occupants already at church, she knew she should prepare herself for the worst. I guess they decided not to send you to the funny farm just yet. Haven pushed her glasses on top of her unruly thicket of black hair and squinted into the sunlight. Beau Decker was ambling across the yard with his body still toned from football season. He moved with a grace uncommon in boys his size. He flashed the smile that made half the females in town curse fate. Cover yourself up, girl. You can't go around exposing yourself to every man who stops by for a visit. Like you care, Haven grinned and pulled her robe together. And it's not as if the rest of them are lining up to see what I got. Why aren't you in church? Beau squatted down beside her chair and surveyed the town. Decided to let them take a week off from trying to save me. Do you know how there are camps out there that can turn kids like me around, train us to be productive members of society? Productive as in knocking up some Snope City girl and pushing out pups till the day you keel over? Haven asked, making Beau snort with laughter. Yeah, well, don't stick around too long. Imogene's probably gonna drag Dr. Tidmore up here after the service is over. What do you say I give him an eyeful? That ought to teach her. Somehow Beau always knew when to stop laughing. You think she'll bring the preacher back here? Things that bad? Haven nodded gravely. They haven't let me skip church since I had pneumonia in the 8th grade. God knows what must have happened while I was out cold yesterday. What did you see this time? Do you remember? Haven let her body fall back into the chair. I couldn't forget if I tried. I was in a room, waiting for Ethan. Then he got there and, oh God, I hope I didn't say anything I shouldn't have in front of Imogene. Bo reached up and squeezed Haven's hand. I thought you figured out how to keep from fainting years ago. How long has it been since something like this happened? Since Tuesday? Haven offered weakly. What? Jesus, Haven, why didn't you tell me? I didn't say anything because I was trying to get it under control. I've been seeing the same thing on and off for a few weeks now. I can't seem to stop the visions anymore, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not even sure that I want to. She paused as the memory of the kiss passed through her mind, followed by a wave of anxiety. It feels real, Bo. Like I was there. I really think I might be losing it this time. You're not losing it, Bo insisted, like a doctor comforting a hysterical patient. Let's try to think this through. Do you have any idea what brings the visions on? What were you doing yesterday when you passed out? Nothing much. There was some gossip show on TV. They were talking about a rich guy in New York whose father just died. He must have reminded me of Ethan. Let me guess. Dark and brooding? So good looking that it makes your eyes ache? How'd you know? Haven sputtered. Bo's smile was anything but wholesome. After all these years of showing no interest in the male species, who'd have thought your taste would turn out so wild? Your mystery boy's name is Ian Morrow. How do you know? The internet's only good for two things, Haven. Gossip's one of them. The person you're talking about's been all over the tabloids for the past few months. That's the end of chapter 3. I might point out, you notice in the very first chapter, when it's talking about Haven and her appearance, she has like short blonde bob and green eyes. In this part, she has a thicket of black hair. Important, or at least I feel like that would be important, but it's something that would be easy to like skip over as well.